Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We want to welcome you back to the UnRuffled Ladies, part two, how to handle grief, holiday grief, how to handle holiday grief. Yes, I am Dr.Jeana Ned, along with my co-hosts, Felicia and Rosalind. We are excited to be back with you again on today, talking about how to handle holiday grief. Now we know that grief comes in different forms, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we go into that, we just want you to know what UnRuffled Ladies mean. It is to be confidence, at ease, and balance. So come on in, chat with us today. We want to talk about this holiday grief with you, and we want you to talk back to us. So please let us know where you're coming in from. Please like and share. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I always say, let's chat. Yeah, let's chat. That's me. Let's talk. Let's us talk together. And we know that grief comes in different forms. You know, there's different forms, and most of the time, the holiday season or any holidays, sometimes it brings back some memories of whatever that might be. But as we said, that grief comes in different forms. That we learned on the first section about finances. You know, and I never thought with finances. So we are living in a time now, and prices is going up, jobs is being lost, different things that is going on in our life. But we are hoping today that we can kind of give you some word of comfort that will help you through these holidays coming up. Coming Thursday will be Thanksgiving, and then we have Christmas coming up. That you would know how to handle grief. And I just want to encourage you to let you know that, hey, it's real. It's real. And guess what? It's okay for you to acknowledge that you may be grieving over something. The whole key to it all, you don't want to stay there. And we want to give you some our experience of things that we have grieved over, but at the same time, God have walked us through it. Anything that goes on in our life, there is a way that God would help you walk through it if you want to. So we want to give you different types of grief, and Roz is going to just kind of give us some information on the different types of grief. And, you know, we was talking earlier. Sometimes you may be grieving and not even know that you're grieving. Mm-hmm. Something may be going on in your life and you don't even know what it is. All you know, you feel sad, or you feel unhappy, or you feel misunderstood. Different things. So you may be going through a period of grief that you really can't pinpoint what it is. So hopefully we can help you to tap into yourself. I always said, take time to check in with you. Take time to check in with you. So Ronald's going to give us some different types of grief before we get into the conversation today. If you have any questions, if you have any answers that you want to share with us today, we will be glad to hear from you. Once again, please like and share, and let's chat.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to UnRuffled Ladies. And yes, we are on the topic of holiday grief again. It is very, very important to bring up and get an understanding on why we need to be able to recognize when someone's grieving, or they might not be showing signs of grieving, but they are experiencing it internally. And and we have some symptoms here that you can look for. But there are different types of grief, and just by studying this topic, we all have learned that there are many different types, and that we wasn't even aware of. And you, like Lady Jeana mentioned, you can be grieving and not even know it. Yeah. So grief is universal. It's universal, yet everyone is going to experience grief in a way that is unique to them. So everybody doesn't grieve the same,
right,
you know?
Right.
So we're going to look at some various types of grief that can help us understand our emotions and others. First, we want to start out with normal grief.
Yeah.
And say that it's normal to grieve.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's actually healthy.
Yeah.
It is actually healthy to go through the grieving process. So the American Psychology Association defines normal grief as grief that lasts anywhere between 6 months to 2 years. But we all know that varies with the individual. And that's following a significant loss. There may be a cultural differences to consider as well. For example, some cultures have grieving practices that call families together over a period of several years to mourn the deceased. If y'all, um, you know, guys, if y'all remember in the biblical days, they actually did set aside days for grieving. Sometimes you hear them talk about, okay, we're going to not go to war for the whole 7 days or something like that. So they actually set time aside. Another form or type of grief is called absent grief. So absent grief, and that's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
You're not grieving. It's absent. You know, the presence and the emotional way of grieving is lacking. So absent grief is when there is a complete void of grief in response to a great loss. This is more common when the loss is sudden. So when it's sudden, you can kind of expect to not feel the emotional pull of grief right away.
Right.
It doesn't, it doesn't come on. You know,
Right.
you don't, it's almost like, and you can recognize it by the presence of denial or shock.
Okay.
You'll be in shock. A person can be in shock because the loss, you know, happened so suddenly.
Right.
To where now you yourself and everyone else is paying attention to your health and you being in shock. But in reality, the grieving process hasn't kicked in yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it hasn't kicked in yet.
In other words, because that you are in shock, you don't feel that you're grieving. You just still in that place of being shocked.
Yeah, you can't believe it happened.
It just happened.
Yes.
So fast. Yeah. Okay.
And the absence of grief, it absolutely should be addressed if it continues over an extended period of time, because grieving is healthy, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Another one is, let me see if I can pronounce this right, the anticipatory grief.
Wow.
Anticipatory grief.
Now,
This type of grief is felt in anticipation of a significant loss. It hasn't even happened yet, but maybe you've experienced a similar loss like it before, and now you are anticipating that it's going to happen again. Okay. So this includes things like diagnosis of a terminal illness, anticipated layoffs. That's probably a it's a significant or a big one in the corporate world.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. Just anticipating that causes you to go into your body to be in a certain state. You know, the grieving is affecting you in with your health in a certain kind of way. And it hasn't even happened yet. But that's why it's called anticipatory grief. You know, you are anticipating that it's going to happen.
Right. Right.
That's a form of grief.
Yeah. In other words, let's just use you on your job, and you've been on your job for 20 years, and now they got this big layoff going. So you just think, I'm going to be next. It become a grief where you can't sleep at night. You know. Yeah.
Yes. Believe it or not, an impending divorce.
Wow.
An impending divorce. You know it's coming. The papers has been filed. You grieving already.
Yeah.
You grieving already. It's common for caregivers to feel the anticipatory grief over a terminally ill patient or loved one. So when experiencing anticipatory grief, you may start envisioning your life without that person. Guys, you know what? I've actually done that before. I actually allowed myself to experience what it was like not to have my mother.
Yeah.
While she was still here.
Wow. Wow.
And I physically and emotionally felt it. I experienced it.
Wow.
So that's an anticipatory grief. you know. And believe it or not, that just came back to me, you know, while we're sitting here going over this. I actually experienced that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so you see that there are different types of grief. And so today, like I said earlier, we want to kind of just tap into some of the grief that we all sometimes go through, especially during the holidays. It's something about the holidays. It brings back memories. And Belisa, we talked about you losing your child right around this time. It was a
Mhm.
holiday time of you, going through losing your firstborn. Matter of
Mhm.
fact, it was your firstborn that you lost, and it's something about that firstborn. It's a different feeling from,
Mhm.
although you may get pregnant again and have other kids, but it's something about that firstborn
Mhm.
child. it's
Mhm.
it's totally different from the other pregnancy that you may have. And so we want to kind of tap in about that. One of the things that I do want to bring out is so important for us to understand is to you begin to understand your grief. What are you grieving from? What is going on? Tap into why you agree, understanding that grief. So, Melissa, kind of let's kind of talk about when you first lost your child and the experience that you had from
Mhm.
losing that firstborn.
Mhm. Well, I became pregnant when I was in college, my last year, senior year of college, and was in a. I was afraid and very under a lot of stress because I was also not only in school full time, but I was working full time.
Mm-hmm.
And but in between all of that, I got pregnant and was going through my internship, um, doing my internship part of my curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working at a store. Um, and so on this particular day, I was at work and noticed that I was having to go to the bathroom much frequently than normal to me. I just thought it was just very normal. It was my first pregnancy. And so, I knew they said that, when you're pregnant, you usually have to make a lot of trips to the restroom. And I might have been about 6 months pregnant at the time. But I just knew it was a difference. I'm like, I'm going every 5 minutes. Like, what is
Right.
up? So I called my doctor and I told her what was going on with me. And she told me, you need to come to the hospital now. You need to stop. You need, like, it was just like her voice was like very stern. Like, you need to come to the hospital right now. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what? I'm at work. I feel like it ain't dawned on me how critical it is.
Right.
I'm like, I'm at work. I can't leave and come to the hospital. I'm at work. What you mean I got to stop and come to the hospital?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told my supervisor I had at the time what was going on, and she literally closed the store up. She closed the store up and took me to the hospital, which was like maybe down a little ways down the street from where we were working.
Mm-hmm.
And then she contacted my parents to let them know that they had to admit me into the hospital
Mm.
because they were still at home.
Right.
And so maybe about an hour away. And then so that they gave them time to come on down. They came down um, and met me there at the hospital. But in the meantime, they were trying to assess me to see what was going on. And of course, what happened, my water broke. Well, actually, the doctor told me my water broke while I was on the phone talking to her. So that's why she was saying, you need to come to the hospital now. And so I went to the hospital, and of course, they, admitted me in and going through all the processes or whatever. And the doctor comes in and they're, talking to me. Um, and then after they got through assessing everything, um, you know, the doctor, I remember the doctor coming into my room and he was having to break the news to me that the baby wouldn't survive.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have back then, they didn't have the technology that they have now when babies are born very premature like that. They didn't have the technology back then to save them. And so I ended up giving birth to her, natural birth. And she lived for like about 30 minutes, and then she passed away.
Hmm. So I guess the
And
question is, so with that happening like that, so instant, and so we talked about what was the word you used? You know, you just use, but how did you process that moment? You know,
and that
in
going,
that the doctor's coming to you,
mhm,
because this got to be before the part of the grief part.
yeah,
I'm a, this was before the grief, but
yeah.
in the moment, the doctor coming to you, letting you know in advance that the
Mhm.
baby's not going to make it. How did you process that moment?
Well, when the doctor told me that, I mean, I could kind of see the expression on him. It was like it was hard for him to even try to break the news to me. But
Mhm.
he, as my doctor, he had to tell me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think maybe he was trying to be as sensitive as he possibly could be, because he didn't know really what kind of reaction I would have. And
Right.
I guess that's for any mother that, mother to be, that you would tell something like that, you
Mhm.
know. And so when he told me, I heard him. I didn't have a reaction initially.
Mm.
Um, and it brought a lot of concern to the doctor that I didn't react in any way. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't fall out. None of that.
Mm.
I just heard him. But at the same time, when I heard him, it was like I I was just, there was a strength on the inside of me that wouldn't let me.
Mm.
Uh, and so the doctor sat with me for a time just to
Yeah.
make sure, it's like, let me make sure she gonna be okay. Cause I don't, it was almost, he was talking to me as if maybe I didn't really comprehend what he said,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
but I heard exactly what he said. But it was just, my reaction to them was just like, it appeared to be not normal. But on the inside, even though it was a very heavy thing
Yeah.
for me to handle, there was a strength on the inside of me that held me in the midst of it. And that's the only way I can describe it.
Mhm.
Because
Wow.
at that time, the Lord began to deal with me. I began to seek the Lord um, during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I began to read my Bible more, open up my Bible. I've been asking the Lord to give me understanding of what I was reading. And it was like, over that course of that time that I spent with him, he began to do something on the inside of me, I think, that helped me,
Mm-hmm.
even though I was getting this type of news from the doctor.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. 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 That is awesome. It's one thing in being in Christ, and it's another thing is not being in Christ and
Hmm.
losing someone that, like as you said, is that you have held for 6 months,
Hmm.
9 months, or whatever that month was. I think it was 6 months, and then
Yeah.
find out that, hey, you're gonna have this baby, but it's not gonna be alive.
Yeah.
You know, I experienced that same thing myself. You know,
Hmm.
I had on collision wreck, and
Hmm.
they died one day, and I had it the next day.
Hmm.
So just that experience alone is it can trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can traumatize you
You can.
to a certain extent. But I like how you had something on the inside, as you said, to hold you, and that
Hmm.
something was the Holy Spirit. I do want to encourage you, if you're on, please let us know that you're on. Please
Mhm.
chat with us. Let me go ahead and say that. Please chat with us, like and share, and let us know your opinion. Let us know what you are experiencing, what you may be going through as well, and maybe that we can be able to address it before we get off. So please chat in and let us know that you're on. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, but going back to that, that can be trauma. That can trauma. You know,
Hmm.
knowing that you're getting ready to have your firstborn, and
Hmm.
I already know in advance it's not going to live.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's not going
Hmm.
to live. So, but as we said earlier, uh, it's okay to be in a space of grief.
Hmm.
Robert even brought out to us earlier, that it's healthy. It's healthy, but one of the things I really want to tune in on and just probably say throughout this whole broadcast, don't stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stay there. Because
Mm-hmm.
grief can bring on so many other different types of feeling, anger,
Mhm.
depression,
Yeah.
anxiety. It brings so many other different types of feelings. So you definitely do not want to stay in that space. Uh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what Pastor V was experiencing is what we call delayed grief.
Mm-hmm.
A
Yeah.
delayed grief. Delayed grief. Um, it doesn't occur for a time after the loss has occurred.
Yes.
Sometimes the grief surfaces in the face of another significant loss, but in this case, that wasn't hers. But like she said, it wasn't right away, and
Right.
that raised
Right.
some red flags and concerns for the doctor.
Right.
So it functions like a trigger, opening
Right.
the gates from an initial loss.
Right. Right.
So
You all
that's the
a
expect.
little action going on. Somebody's coming to my door. My daughter's coming in. So just in case if you see some movement, that's what it is. So I just want to say that before they come through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead, Rosin. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. So I'm just mentioning another type of grief, and then we'll go on with our questions. The next one is complicated grief. This is a type of grief experience is marked by conflicting feelings for the loss. For example, grief over the death of death of an estranged parent or abusive partner. Oh, that's interesting. Or the loss of a job that no longer brought joy.
Mm,
I
mm,
think maybe I've been through that one. We're talking about complicated grief.
mm-hmm.
You might experience complicated grief when you are grieving over the death of an estranged parent. What are they saying? You and your mother or father didn't have a parental type of relationship,
Mm-hmm.
or you didn't meet. Let's say you didn't meet them until you were 20 years old.
Right.
Um, or a partner that was abusive towards you has
Mm-hmm.
passed. Can you imagine what that is, for a person? I
Right.
mean, a spouse that was abusive, and who
Right.
knows to what depth. Now they have passed. That has to be it might be sometimes some conflicting emotions and feelings.
Right.
And you
Right.
might even go into some type of guilt for not grieving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's cold to say, but I'm sure there's some people it's like, okay, they dead.
Mm-hmm.
You
Wow.
know, and then there might come a time when, it hits them in a different way.
Okay.
And the grieving actually does, kick in and take place. But that's called complicated grieving. I didn't know that you could grieve over the loss of a job
Oh yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
that no longer brought you joy, But
Yes.
there's just so many ways that we can experience this thing called grief. What makes it even more impactful is when it happens around the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this happened to me right before, or right around, it was, or her birthday was November the 26th.
Mm.
So every year that day would come around, initially afterwards, every time that day would come around, um, I would go into like a little mode of just maybe sadness.
Mm.
Um, I
Mm-hmm.
have a picture of her. And so I would pull out the picture, and just kind of reflect on that time I went through with her and
Mm.
wonder, what it would be like if she was with me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when they when I gave birth to her, they brought afterwards, they cleaned her up and had dressed her and everything, and they brought her back to me, and she was still warm. And so to me, when I was holding her, she felt like, to me, it was like she was just asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But when they took her, and they when it come time for her to we had to decide what funeral home to pick her up after we had that arranged. um I asked if I could see her before they take her again. And of course my aunt was there in my room, and I remember my aunt was crying. My mom, I don't think she really wanted me to do that, because I think it was just a hard thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And your family don't want you, you feel like, no, this is enough. You don't need to go that. You don't need
Mm-hmm.
to do that. Just let it go. But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see her. So they brought her in,
Mm-hmm.
and I held her again, and this time she was ice cold.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it set. At that moment, that's when it set. The grief set. That's when I began to understand that this is final.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's
Um,
talk about how long you went through the period of grief, and how did you handle uh, coming out of that period? Because you said it was like in November, so we know November is Thanksgiving month,
mhm,
and November
mhm,
26th or something like that. Let's just talk
mhm,
about a little bit how did you walk through that journey
mhm,
of grief? Every year at this time of the year, how
mhm.
long did you walk through it? We know that grief, it can last for a long period of time,
Yeah,
you know, but how long did you walk through that space of grieving because of the year, the month,
yeah.
November?
I think it was a little while. I don't actually like remember really when it just kind of lessened. Um, it, because there are times I still do think about it, and especially around this time, but it's not to the point where I just be like in a sad mode,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, but I think maybe a good part of my young adult years, I just went through that time of of grief. And I didn't do like a whole lot of crying, but just within, silently within. you know I would go off to myself maybe a little bit, just to reflect on it, and just to bring her picture out, to just to look at her picture.
Mm-hmm.
um but initially, walking through that, I had my mom was there. So I think it's very critical that you have a good support system in place.
Mm-hmm.
If you, well, everybody don't, but if you do, you're blessed to have that. And so my mom was there with me to walk me through a lot of the feelings and the emotions
Mm-hmm.
that I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's like I began to get into the word a lot more. And so I was hungry for the word. And I wanted to have a closer relationship with the Lord. It pushed me to have a closer relationship with Him through that
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was there ever a time that you felt the spirit of anger? You didn't understand why God took your child? Was there a period of that time that you was walking through that journey that
mhm,
I know you said earlier it was sadness, but
yeah,
did you ever feel angry and confused?
I maybe felt more confused than anger, because I wanted to I had just like why. I wanted to understand why. I and I mentioned, earlier, I had a conversation with the Lord. Like, I want to know, why did you have to take her? Because I felt like I could have took care of her. That's me talking in my in my young adult mind. That was my conversation with the Lord. I told him, I said, why did you take her? I could have took care of her. Like, you didn't trust me that I could take care of her, you know?
Wow.
And but of course he knows best.
Yeah.
Um, and so over time, as I, you know, talk to the Lord about my feelings, um, as I begin to study the word, and it just helped me to understand things a little better as I went. And then it also helped me to accept um, the situation. And a lot of times when we get caught up in grief, we have a hard time accepting things. What God allowed to happen. Um, you know, I didn't blame God, because that's another thing that we do. I didn't blame him at all about, how things happen. All I could do was just trust him in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just kind of weird that in my natural self, maybe I would have blamed God, but it was he showed me such a love and a tenderness in that time that I couldn't really,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
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 Yeah.
So, in other words, by you having God in your life, it really helped you cope with your time of sadness or your time of maybe
Hmm.
clearly understanding. But let's just talk to that person out there that maybe don't have that type of relationship with God. Just don't know God that kind of way. What would
Yeah.
what would be your advice to give that person that don't know how to study the Word of God, don't know about uh, God is Alpha and Omega.
Hmm.
He is the
Well,
creator of all. What would you
Mm-hmm.
say to that person that maybe even now today is experiencing, may not be a loss of a child, but it may be a loss of whatever that might be. You know, I mean,
hmm.
grieve. It's still you still get some of the same feelings, no matter what the situation is of a
Hmm.
loss. You know,
Hmm.
you get that same feeling of anger. You get that same feeling of sadness or confused. What would you say to a person that maybe is out there today that is dealing with grief, especially with the holidays? It could be, I can't go shopping for my kids.
Hmm.
I don't have the money to go shop for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a grief. That can be a burden, knowing that. So, what would you say? Either one of you may want to answer that. What would
Yeah.
you say to the person out there that maybe it's in that place right now?
Well, I first and foremost, uh, God is worthy of your trust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, he's not. He wants what's best for you. Um, and he doesn't want you to go through it alone. He's there for us. He's with us. The Bible says that, he has been touched in all points. He knows every emotion, every depth of feeling. He knows it through and through. So he has the ability to help us through those difficult emotions, those difficult things that we're feeling.
Right.
Um, and we just have to be willing to open up and bring those things to him. Um, and refrain from the mindset to blame God, you know, because it we have to come to terms with the fact that because of the type of world that we live in, we're going to experience difficult things,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and just because you are a young adult, you just now stepping out into the world, you're not exempt. We have that idea in our head that we're invincible and nothing can ever touch us, nothing can ever happen to us. We have
Right.
I have this plan and this is what I'm gonna do,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
but you come to find out, you know, you don't have control over everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to come to a place where you trust God, and then you accept whatever that is that God allows in your life. Just know it's going to work for you something greater, something better and something greater.
Mm-hmm. Rosa, what would be your point for somebody that may be grieving today? And like I said, we're getting ready to go into our holiday season, and we know holiday is a time that family comes together. It's supposed to be a joyful time that we are
Mhm.
rejoicing together, laughing and talking and enjoying each other. What would be one of the maybe key word that you would just give somebody that just dread to see Thursday come? You know,
Yeah.
I want to see. I don't want. I just hate when Thursday come because I know this is a time that family get together and they laugh and talking, and I don't have this, or I don't have this person in my life, or I can't do this, whatever that might be. What would you say to that person?
Um, this particular holiday, Thanksgiving, that would be a good opportunity to really tap into just sincerely being grateful, for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know if you're grieving for a loved one or someone who's no longer there, you don't want to stop that process. You want to go through grieving it. But if it's gotten to the point to where you dread that time, or it reminds you of the person, and it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, but especially Thanksgiving, I would just simply say it's a time to reflect on your own life. It's a time to reflect on your own life, where you are in life, and truly tap in to the true meaning of gratefulness and thanksgiving, and being appreciative of what you have, who you are, the people that are still in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that would be a healthy way to approach it. You know.
Mm-hmm. Also, I want to add to that. Uh, just stop and think or write down maybe 5 things that you just having a hard time with in
Mm-hmm.
this, and then write down as many things that you can think of the good things that is happening to you right now. Because if you breathing in and out, you have life, that's good.
Mhm.
You know, 9 times out of 10, the good is going to outweigh the bad. But sometimes we don't know how to recognize the good things because our mind is so clouded with this one bad thing that is going on that we can't see the 5 other good things. And so sometimes it takes you just stop writing it and write it down. Write it down. Because the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So
Mm-hmm.
you may have one bad thing that's going on that you're grieving about. And I'm not trying to downplay your grief.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not, because that's normal. It's okay to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of time the enemy wants you to let that just overshadow everything else that is going on well in your life. So I
Right.
want to challenge you this week, starting today, to just maybe write down that one thing. Maybe it may be more than one thing that you're grieving over, but write down that one thing that you're grieving over, and then write down all the good things that is going on. If you have a shelter, if you have clothes, if you have friends, if you whatever that might be,
Mm-hmm.
and just to see how much the good would outweigh the bad. And then I want to challenge you to just to think about the good things for this season.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, just begin to think on the good things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So back to you, Valencia. We're
Mhm.
talking we're talking about grief. Do we have anybody asking questions or have answers to some of these things that we're talking about?
No, I haven't seen anything just yet.
Not yet. No post yet.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's go through the process. You said you had a period of time that you did grieve.
Mhm.
Uh, what made you get to the point that you said, "Okay, I'm going to accept what have happened. I'm going to move on." How did you do that?
Well, I mean, I know we was talking about it earlier, but just taking one day at a time helped me
Taking
to move, to just take it every day, as it comes.
yes.
Um, Not allowing myself to be overwhelmed, and even if I felt overwhelmed, like I said, I always had someone that I could go to to talk to, um, that would help give me some clarity and kind of help me to refocus. My mom was really amazing. But I just taking a day at a time and just
Mhm.
trusting God with it. Because it was like, it's like, I guess it comes in waves.
Mhm.
You know, the griefs, the feeling of it comes in waves, and so you may be feeling okay for a time, and then all of a sudden you in that feeling in that sadness, you know,
Mhm.
and then I go to a place where I would just go to the Lord and pray about it, what I was feeling, and I would feel a release or a lift um from it, and then I could go on.
Mhm.
Um, and then after a time, I felt strong enough where it's something that I could talk about to somebody else.
Right.
If someone was going through that,
Yeah.
because after I got married, I lost another child,
Mm.
Wow. Okay.
and so but I was about 3 months at that time, and so I experienced what Sister Rosalind was talking about, anticipatory grief,
Mm-hmm.
when I was pregnant with that baby. I had a fear that would happen the first time may happen again,
Right.
and so I had to deal with the fear, because even after I got pregnant with my son Caleb, I had to break free of all of that because the enemy tried to, you know,
Tell you, okay,
tell me that this baby was going to go. I'm taking this one,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so I had to work myself. I had to get the fear off of me
Mhm.
and just believe that God. He said, He's a God. He's a God. He gives life.
Yeah,
It's the enemy that brings death.
yeah.
So, I had to get my focus off of off of what happened. That thinking it's going to happen again. I had to get away from that fear. Get that fear away from me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. It's so good. You say you got to get that fear away from you. It's
Hmm.
you did that. What did that healing look like? Because I guess what I'm asking is we want people to see how the enemy can put you in a dark place, but there is something about when you walk through it. What do healing look like for you today? Where where,
Well,
where you're not operating any longer in fear. You're not operating, you know.
hmm I had to take a stand, and at the time when I was married, um, my husband at the time had a bottle of oil that he always kept on the nightstand. And so when I had this dream that I was going to miscarry again, and it upset me so bad, I was crying in my sleep. I was, I woke up crying, and I woke up and I told him, I said, I need you to take that oil. I need you to anoint my stomach and pray over me, pray over this baby. And so he got the oil and poured it over my stomach and began to pray. And then after we prayed, we went back to sleep because it was like in the middle of the night. And then I woke up shortly again afterwards because I felt the bed shaking. But the enemy had begun to attack him in his sleep because he had prayed over me. So I knew it was a fight. It was a fight to get Caleb here. And
Mm.
so I just began to walk in authority, what God said, you know, that he's the one that gives us life.
Life, yeah.
And I forbid that the enemy would try to take this baby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and You know, I might have been about 6 months pregnant with Caleb then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was so excited. We had videos of him on the ultrasound. I would play the videos, just just like, wow, I'm gonna have a. I already knew I was gonna have a boy. We had his room. How I was gonna decorate his room. I would go into his room,
Mm-hmm.
and so 3 months later, here he come, 9 pounds and
Wow.
3 ounces. You know,
Wow.
he was
Wow.
so big, I had to have a C-section.
Wow. And you
Yeah,
know
and
what?
then,
That God that we serve, He always give us double
yeah,
for our trouble. So I encourage you, if you're operating in the spirit of grief today, don't stay there. Identify it. Identify it, but don't stay in that place. I like how you said that you had to trust God and
mhm,
start to get into His Word to see what His Word said about your situation. Rhonda, I'm sure you have some questions that you want to ask as well. But yeah, do not stay there. Do not stay there. And that's what we're talking about: holiday grief,
mhm,
holiday grief. And most of us have it in some type of way.
yeah,
There's something or something in your life that have happened that causes a little sadness, or
Mm-hmm.
you know. But don't get to the place where you're angry. You taking your anger out on somebody else. You don't want to be around your family. That's a gift from God.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
God give each one of us family, and
mhm,
family is so important. You know,
yeah,
so begin to build memories on what you have left, whatever that
mhm,
might be. Build memories on that. You know, to say, okay, I identify what's going on within me, but I'm not going to stay there. I'm gonna start working toward. I'm gonna start working. I'm gonna start walking my way out of that door. And
mhm,
I pray that you even start this year. This year, yes, it's a lot of things going on in the world right now. But if you
Mm-hmm.
have family is so important.
yeah,
You know, if you have an alt against one of your family members of something that they did a long time ago and it brought sadness, it brought anger to you,
Mm-hmm.
be the bigger person. Go to them. Don't wait for them to come to you because you want to be healed.
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
You want to be set free. Yeah. So,
mhm.
okay, Rosa, I'm sorry. I
So,
digress. You have it.
Felicia, yeah, it really is an interesting topic. It's not one that comes up all the time,
Right.
Mhm,
but it is very important. In a little bit, we're going to tap in on abnormal holiday grief, what's not normal, and it really needs to be addressed. But, Relicia, while you were talking, about losing the baby, you know how the saying is, when you go through the labor and the birth pains, and after you have the baby, it's like you forget all about it. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
you forget all about it. You're not even thinking about it. You have the baby. You got the prize now. You have the reward, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
as you were talking, I'm thinking she still had to go home and deal with her body recuperating from having had carried a child,
yeah,
but you don't have it,
but you don't have it. Mhm,
you know?
mhm,
And I thought about that, and I was just wondering, did you, after you went home, after a couple of days,
mhm,
did you have any thoughts about, my body, you know, changed, changed. I went through emotional things, being pregnant because you were 6 months along, right?
mhm,
Yeah. So
yeah,
did you ever feel like I'm experiencing having had carried a child, but I don't have it? How did that make you feel? Afterwards, once you got home and you trying to move on, with your life, but your body
mhm,
you was still experiencing in your body that I was pregnant,
yeah,
but there's no child.
yeah. Um, like I said, I remember at telling the Lord, I could have took care of her. Why did you have to take her? I could have took care of her.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Lord, I'm working. I got a job. I got a job.
Oh.
You know. But I'm just like, even though I'm a single parent, I would be a single parent. That
Yeah.
that was like a reality check
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
I was trying to make preparation for it, really.
Mm.
But I had so much going on. I was going to school full time. I was going to work full time. I mean, I was just like, I was doing a lot.
Wow.
Um, and then I'm pregnant, and now I really got to start preparing for not just for myself, but now for another baby, for another human being. You
Mm.
know, so I was under a lot of stress. I think a lot of pressure. Um, and so when that happened, I just felt like um, I don't know. I just felt like, Lord, why did you have to take her?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so after time went on, um, anytime I had some type of overwhelming emotion or feeling, like I said, my mom was there. She was always. I mean, she was by me. She stuck by me really close.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably to make sure I didn't fall into like a depression, because it
Mm.
was so simple. It was so easy to fall into that. But I had such you know, a support, not just physically but spiritually.
Right.
That she always could put me back on track as far as you know, um, accepting it and being able to to live and move on.
Mm-hmm.
I still have to live.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she's gone, you still have to live life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, our time is almost out. Go ahead, Ross. We want to go ahead and address that other way of grief.
Yes. I want to talk about this one because um, it's called disenfranchised grief.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of it. Never even probably thought about it before, but it does exist. Disenfranchised grief. So it's recognizing a hidden sorrow. And this type of grief occurs anytime someone feels that society has denied their need or right or role or capacity to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody experienced that? You've been denied the
Wow.
right and the need and the capacity to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm just wondering, what situation would one be in to experience that? And the first thing that came to my mind was back in the biblical days.
Mm-hmm.
See, those people wasn't even at liberty to express their acceptance and love for Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's a
Mm-hmm.
type of grieving because they were being denied the freedom to grieve his death. So I'm just comparing that. It wasn't like today. No one's going to lash us. No one's going to prosecute us. No one's going to put us down, talk about us, or prevent us from talking about our love for a loved one or even for Christ. But in those days, so we're talking about a disenfranchised grief
Mm-hmm.
where the
Mm-hmm.
loss is seen sometimes as small by others or minimized by culture.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like saying you grieving and you're being hindered from in a healthy manner of grieving. It's like maybe when you go to work. I don't know if anybody's experienced that. You can be grieving and you still have to go to work. You go to work, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't allow it to show.
Right. Right. Right.
Can you imagine going to work and you're a customer service person and you have to work on the phone? I know a lot of people didn't experience this. You have to work on the phone and you can't let them hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let it be known that you're grieving.
Right.
That's just an example. And
Yeah.
not that no one's hindering you, but that's an example of being in a position where you're going through the grieving process, but while you're in that position, you just can't show it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you might as well put it out there. We was talking about it earlier, how you can be in a be married and in another relationship, and something happens to that person outside of the relationship, and you grieving over them, even though you got a spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lie,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I've seen it happen.
Wow.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Well, as I said earlier, our time is winding down. I want to give you some pointers on how to begin to walk out of it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, we don't want to downplay you in no kind of fashion or form, but God don't want you to stay there. He doesn't want you to stay there. So number one, you want to understand your grief. That's number
Mm-hmm.
one. You want to understand your grief, whatever you're grieving over. Whatever, you might want to write that down. Understand it. Get an understanding of it. The next thing, you want to process the loss. Whatever that loss is, begin to process it. Begin to put it in your mind and just kind of ponder it. You know, is it worth me staying here? Is it worth, just begin to process that whole whatever might be going on. Begin to process.
Mm-hmm.
And then number three is finding the meaning of it. Why are you grieving? How long have you been grieving?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want to stay? Find the meaning of it. It doesn't have a meaning that it would disfigure your life the rest of your life.
Right.
You know, uh, and then another thing, you definitely want to offer support. Get support from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Talk. Don't feel bad to talk to somebody and tell someone. This is what this platform is all about. Is
Right.
telling the truth. Is speaking your truth. And that's the one of the main thing that we come on every other Sunday to help encourage you how important it is to speak your truth. Find someone that you can speak your real truth to.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to start just with yourself, standing yourself in the mirror and speaking it out loud what is going on within you.
Yeah.
Your true feelings. Not trying to cover it up, not trying to make an excuse for it, not trying to put another word in place of it, but speaking your truth.
Yes.
And there's something about saying it out loud, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference when you say it out loud. And I
Yes.
definitely want to encourage connection. Make connection with somebody else that maybe they might be in that same place with you, but try to find somebody that's been in that place and have learned how to move out of that place.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Making the right connection. That is so important. Making the right connection. Many of you know that I went through therapy, and just some of the things that I went back and tapped into that have held me hostage for a long, long time. And with me just saying it out loud, just saying the real truth. It's like, you know what? That wasn't that bad after all. You know what I'm saying? It really
Yeah.
wasn't that bad after all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you're grieving, maybe you may be grieving over friendship, somebody that you really loved and you really had a lot of, you put a lot into, they just kind of walked away and you still grieving behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive them and forgive yourself. These are
Mm-hmm.
just some ways to help you move forward.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? To help you move forward. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Self-reflection. That's kind of add up to what I just said. Self-reflection. Of course, one of them was moving forward. You know, moving forward. And it say what does what does taking a step forward look like for you right now? You got to ask yourself that. What does taking a step forward look like to me right now?
Mm.
I'm going to release a lot of things that have been weighing me down
Yeah.
just by taking that one step forward.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The way I felt about family gathering, just by taking that one step forward. Ask yourself, what would it look like? You know, it would bring the joy and the peace back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being okay if you can't go shopping like your neighbors. You're going to do what you can do within your means. I'm going to take a step forward, and I'm not going to let this Christmas or this Thanksgiving have me in a space where I can't enjoy what I have in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I have my family, I have my children, I have my husband, or whatever it might be. I have my best friends. I'm not going to allow the simple things keep me from enjoying what I have right here. That's what you call taking that step forward. Just put it in your mind, your imagination. What does that look like?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are just some of the things that I just wanted to leave with you. Another point was rediscovering joy.
Mm.
Rediscover your joy. Rediscover your peace. It's important that you live in peace. Rediscover that. Do what you have to do to rediscover, even if it's just taking time out with you.
Mm-hmm.
Rediscover the peace and the joy
Mm-hmm.
that our Father want you to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna laugh.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible said laughter is good for the soul.
Yes, it
Mhm.
is.
Just get in the mirror and laugh. Just laugh.
Yes.
Rediscover that joy.
Yes. Yes.
You know, it can
Mm.
just be you and you all by yourself, standing in the mirror just laughing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you will have that pure laugh. You know, and when it's all over, man, I enjoyed myself today. I just laughed. I mean, something just that simple can make a difference.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
But
right.
either one of you may have some closing word as well. Before we just, you have anything that you just want to say before we let go?
Okay.
Just wanted to remind everyone that, and thank you for being here. The next UnRuffled Ladies live on Facebook is December the 8th, every second and fourth Sunday. And the fourth Sunday in December is December the 22nd. Remember to go on our site on the UnRuffled Ladies Facebook page and put some ideas, put some topics in there you would love, for us to cover, and you come online and we talk about it. And you can even suggest being our guest, if you have some special input on something that would bless other people, other women, we would be more than happy to have you. And I just wanted to, my closing words for today's topic is your identity. Whatever your loss was, yes, it was a loss, but it wasn't your total identity. Just
Mm,
remember who you are, love yourself, tell yourself that you love you, and just know that all is well. Just live in a mindset of gratitude.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Felicia, you in the last words?
I just wanted to say that there is a bright side to grief. On the other side, God will get you to the other side. You
Yeah,
know, don't give up. Um, continue to trust in Him, and He will get you to the other side of it, where you will experience joy. You
yeah,
will laugh again. You'll smile again. And my
Mm.
dad always would tell me, he will always tell me this, and it always sticks with me whenever I'm in a challenging situation. He'll say, "It's going to get better,"
yeah. Exactly.
and and believe me, it will. It will get better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, once again, we definitely want to thank you so very much for joining us today. We pray that we said something that would help you walk through this journey on these next holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like we said, this is the UnRuffled Ladies page. This is a page that you can come and be free. Hey, expose the enemy. Expose the enemy. And don't think I'm going through a period of grief because you see my bald head.
Beautiful. Isn't she lovely? Look at her.
I promise you, I am not. This is just something that I've been wanting to do for a long time.
Wow.
Go into another phase of life. Another birthday is coming up in January, and I choose to go into 2025 doing something different that I never done before.
Yeah.
So here it is.
That's awesome.
Here it is.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I am. I'm walking in joy.
That's good.
And walking in peace that surpasses all understanding. And it's all because I'm beginning to empty myself out.
Yes.
One layer off at a time. One layer off at a time. Pastor V said, well, just one day at a time. So I'm taking one layer off at a time. God bless you. God keep you. Please join us. Please like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah. Go ahead and do that right now. Subscribe.
There you go.
And God bless you. Have a great Thanksgiving. And we pray to see you and hear from you on our next UnRuffled Ladies. God bless.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.